Herbert outduels Mahomes,
The Ravens kick another miracle.
and Matt Nagy ruins yet another first-round quarterback.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Inspection. Welcome back, Nick. Before we get too far into it, I have to know your thoughts on a very obscure comment I heard this week. Your own Cowboys owner, Jerry Jones, commented on his first-round draft pick, Micah Parsons. He said, he's pure as mother's milk. How does that make you feel?
Well, so Micah Parsons has been playing well, so it makes me feel pretty good. And if there's one guy who knows some things about liquid substances that are natural, it's Jerry Oil Man Jones, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
The guy knows his stuff, and he was smart about it too, right? He didn't come out and say, Micah Parsons only played 3 games, right? It's still got a long way to go. Good start, long way to go. If he would have come out and said, Micah Parsons is like something more valuable, like, I don't know, oil, then maybe I'd feel a little differently and be like, whoa, Jerry, you're jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah,
here.
Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Like, we can go ahead and say, like, for the Cowboys, Troy Aikman was like high octane, like race fuel. Like,
Oh, yeah.
There we go. And like, I don't know, what would you, like, Tyron Smith would be like, I don't know, what do you think? Like
Just diesel.
Like, yeah,
just
solid diesel. Like diesel.
Oh, yeah.
Grit, salt of the earth, diesel fuel.
Oh, yeah.
And, but, and I don't even think Micah's at, crude oil yet. Like, Dak's probably like, oh, he's crude oil. Dak's,
Oh, yeah.
he's there. He hasn't done too much yet. He hasn't, like, gotten to you too far in the playoffs yet, but he's getting there. So,
Oh, yeah.
I like the tempered words now that you put it that way. Tempered words, it's a good, mother's milk is a step down from crude oil. So
Absolutely. That's good leadership on his part.
another interesting thing here, like I think we've talked about this earlier, huge missed opportunity. Huge. When I say the name to you, Taylor Heinicke, what is that like in your head? Like, what image do you put up?
I think hard about this, but I think it's a good natural connection. Got to go with Heineken, right? The beer company.
So you're telling me you don't see Bud Light? Bud
No.
Light doesn't ring a bell in your head.
No, not at all. No connection whatsoever. I think Heineken goes together.
Well, he tried. He tried to get a deal with Heineken, a beer deal with Heineken, but I guess they said no, and Bud Light wanted to seize the opportunity, so they stepped in. Taylor Heinicke is now a Bud Light partner. So that's a huge missed opportunity.
Oh, huge. And here's the thing, right? Like Heineken is the beer, right? That nobody really thinks about. No one really even likes. Like, what's the team? No one really ever thinks about.
Oh, like, I mean, really Dan Snyder, everybody hates. Everyone hates Washington.
Oh yeah, so, it's like a match made in heaven. It's like a marketing synergy perfection.
It's a brand deal that can beat all other brand deals.
It was right there for Heineken's taking, and credit to Bud Light, Dilly, they took care of it.
Yeah, Bud Light capitalizes again, official beer of the NFL. I wonder if they like stepped in and like, hey, beer deals are our territory. You can't step in. Another match made in heaven, terrible coach and possibly a terrible player. Who knows? We talked about it earlier. Maybe Nagy is the problem. But the Bears had 47 yards of offense last week. 9th worst NFL history. How does that make you feel?
It just is so bad, right? I feel bad for Bears fans. I feel bad for football fans, the fact that it even exists, right? The Bears had 1 passing yard on Sunday. That's only 1 more yard than I had on Sunday. Just to let all our listeners know, I don't play in the NFL. That's how 0 yards. Like, it's unbelievably bad how, the Bears have been on offense. I think Fields is since taking over for Dalton, the guy's 12 of 33 for maybe 100 yards passing. He hasn't scored a touchdown or even contributed to a touchdown yet. I mean, to be this bad on offense, it's a level of incompetence that it's hard to think it's almost not intentional, right? Nagy's just not helping him out.
It's exactly. We can't even this early blame it on Fields yet, but they didn't no justice to him in the play calling. There's no naked boots. There is no play action. Like, there's nothing to set up what would make Fields excel. They didn't give him the easy confidence building plays. They didn't give him a ton of screens. They might have thrown some screens, but they didn't work it in the way that they should have to help him instill confidence. Passing is all about confidence.
Well, confidence and rhythm, right? And the thing with the Bears is they have a few players, right? Allen Robinson's a decent receiver. They got a few good back guys. I mean, it's not a stacked offense, but this is an offense that should have more than 50 yards from scrimmage and 1 passing yard, right? And like to your point, right? Nagy just didn't set him up for any sort of success, right? I would have thought with Fields after a full week of practice, they'd have RPOs, they'd have read options, play actions, maybe some deep shots to take advantage of his arm. None of that. It was just an awful game plan, an awful play calling during the game, and it resulted in bad execution. I tell you what, it's looking like right now that Nagy's on, I don't know if he's on the hot seat or if the seat's already on fire. I think he's on his way out the door.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think this may have been intentional in a way that's like some sort of insurance. Like Nagy, he's been bad, but he moved on from Trubisky. I didn't have my guy. Let me get my guy, and then I'll prove that I can be a good coach. Well, he got his guy. It was drafted in his tenure there, so that's his guy by default. He's got the guy, and then he had Andy Dalton, and he would never. I think he was almost like, well, my guy's not ready. My guy's not ready. That's why he never named him the starter outright, like from the beginning. And he was like, he's not ready. He's not ready. He's not ready. So now he might be like calling a bad game on purpose to be like, look, I told you he wasn't ready. We need to go with Foles or we need to go with Dalton. It's not his time, just to buy him extra time. But he might not even be there much longer anyway. So
yeah, I think that's a full strategy, right? Because he's dealing with GM Ryan Pace, who he may be on the chopping block, right? If they don't start winning,
someone's going down, and and Pace has the option to pull the trigger first. So.
Yeah, and I think Nagy's to blame, and especially with Eric Bieniemy down in Kansas City, coming up to Chicago with Justin Fields potentially next year. That's looking like a move Ryan Pace is probably angling for right now. I think Nagy's on his way out. I don't know if there's anything he can do to help his cause now.
Oh yeah. Something interesting I saw on let's call it now officially, it's Monday Night Manning. I'm sad they're taking a few weeks off, but LeBron James, they talked about during the NFL lockout that Pete Carroll and Jerry Jones offered him a 1-year deal, so to speak, to come play for the NFL for a season. How would you like LeBron James, big 6'8" tight end, on your team?
Yeah, so I think I don't know if he would have played tight end, right? I don't know if LeBron's doing any blocking. I think it would have been a fun, I don't want to say gimmick. It definitely would have sold seats, right? So we talked about smooth as mother's milk for Micah Parsons. I don't know if LeBron James is oil as an NFL guy, but he's somewhere in between that milk and oil thing, right? Maybe he's a and tell you what, you know what he is? He's a nice Bud Light. That's what he is for Jerry
Bud
Jones.
Light, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, in the NBA, he's definitely high octane.
Oh yeah.
He's high octane in the NBA, and maybe Jerry thinks, okay, if I can bring that down to a lower level and just get some form of success off jersey sales, whatever the thing is, we can do something. We can work with this business. He's thinking business. He's not thinking football.
Oh yeah.
You think LeBron had jersey sales worked into his deal somehow?
Yeah, I think that, obviously if it would have happened, it would have been a gimmick, right? It would have just been Jerry seeing an opportunity to make, $500 billion or, some ungodly amount that would have occurred.
Every Cleveland fan in the world would buy a LeBron James Cowboys
imagine
jersey.
LeBron suiting, he didn't even have to play. Imagine him suiting up on the sideline for an NFL game. I mean, I think ESPN would just explode. I honestly
wouldn't even be able to see the game.
Headquarters would explode.
The whole game, it would just be cameras on LeBron. Oh, look, LeBron James came to the NFL. So.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't even film the actual plays of the game. They just have it on LeBron the whole time.
Well, I don't know if you're able to see very clearly what I'm wearing. I have on a special gift that somebody so dearly bought me for my wedding, and it was my lucky jersey. I always wear this jersey most of the time to watch the game, and a very special thing happened. I now think this is definitely my lucky jersey. Justin Tucker kicked an NFL record 66-yard field goal walk-off game winner. Incredible. I You know, in my head, I truly did think he was gonna make it because I think he's gonna make all of them. I'm actually very like shocked when he misses anything. Um, but now it's great to know that all you have to do is get it to the 50, and he has a chance.
Obviously, an unbelievable kick, heartbreaker for Detroit, right? But I mean, it's just unbelievable to watch him do it. I think, and I want to just come out and say publicly, credit to me for getting you. Most people give a set of steak knives or some china as a wedding gift. I gave you a Justin Tucker jersey. Tucker kicks a 66-yard field goal. I think I kicked a 66-yard field goal. I think
Yeah,
the
you
transitive
did that
property.
for Tucker.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to take some credit to that. But no, I've obviously unbelievable performance by him. Great play. Heartbreaker for Detroit. It's tough. They were outplayed the whole game anyway, but to lose on that one, especially after giving up the 4th and 20, you got to feel for the Lions a little bit. But what a play. And people are talking that kick around the city. I tell you what, everyone in the office, I had my car mechanic Monday was like, you see that kick?
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to see your hands fix my car, dude. Like, keep your hands where, look where you're working. But it's
how was the city? Like, did you feel like the pull, like the tension, and then a sudden release of like, people going insane? Were your neighbors too loud that night?
Well, I think it's weird because it's obviously a big football town, but it's almost very tame. Like people like afterwards were like kind of shy. They're like, "Did you see that kick?" I was like, "Yeah," and then they exploded. They're like, "What a kick!" Like it was like
they're just like, "Oh, let's not be too forward."
Yeah.
That's all I'll say. Whenever I go there, everyone's pretty nice for the most part. So, in other news, our jobs were jeopardized this week.
Yep.
Whether you want to believe it or not. Someone tried to come into our space. I think we have securely locked down the NFL podcast space. But Richard Sherman announced that he was going to start a podcast. The caveat being, obviously, he doesn't beat us on football knowledge, wits, or acumen. But he said he would announce where he has decided to sign on this podcast. Great business move. The execution, horrible, because 12 hours later, the news breaks that he is going to Tampa, so now he's lost all momentum that he has built.
Well, so I want to be very clear about this. Let's not go ahead and jump and criticize Richard Sherman too early, right? As you know, like being my roommate in college, when you play college football, like obviously Richard Sherman did at Stanford, sometimes if you go for road games, you have to travel a few days before. So obviously what happened here is that Sherman missed one of his marketing classes that he was taking at Stanford, right? He was there for the Wednesday class where they talked about marketing and promotion, but unfortunately they had a big game probably going to Southern Cal. And so we left to Southern California. So we missed the Friday morning lecture where they talked about execution of the marketing plan.
Richard, come on, man.
Come
talk to us. We'll help you.
We will.
We'll take you as a guest. We don't take guests, but we'll take you as a guest if you'd like to come on our podcast.
We will make an exception for Richard Sherman so that way we can help him bring up his marketing promotion knowledge.
Yeah. Well, in other news, I'd say second greatest marketer in the NFL. Jerry is obviously first. Second, I would say Robert Kraft. He has a great business model down there. He released a new book. And in that book, he said, and I quote, "Bill Belichick is the biggest effing a-hole in my life." I didn't hear the context, and he could have said, like, "But I love him." But the quote I saw was, "He's the biggest effing a-hole in my life." What do you think? You think it's true?
Well, obviously Robert Kraft's a billionaire and very, very successful, but I can just imagine if you're Robert Kraft and you work with Nike and Under Armour and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, on all this exotic gear and the latest technology. And then you see old Belichick walk in a hoodie from like 1994 that's cut and shredded to pieces, and you want to talk to Belichick. It's like, "Hey, Bill, how's it going?" And he's just like, "Yeah, it's fine. We're on to Cincinnati." I can see how Kraft gets a little miffed about that.
You think like if Robert like invites Bill to like the Met Gala, he's like, "Wear your casual." Does he wear like a tuxedo cut off like hoodie? You think he's got one of those?
Well, see, it all depends, right? Did he film the gala beforehand to see how it was going to be set up?
Yeah. Does he have the game film? Is he broken it down properly?
Right. Did he potentially, deflate, the balloons and stuff and the gala beforehand. I mean, these are all questions that only Belichick would know the answers to. But I think these are the questions that would have to go into that.
I think he probably did. I think he's got a beat on everything, but I also think he's the kind of guy that would just turn that offer down. So, I'm past the Met Gala. We're on to
We're on a
Victoria's Secret model show. We're past that. Anyways, stemming off the Patriots, they're the best of the bunch in this category, seeing as they're the only team with a win. But what is up with rookie quarterbacks? They suck this year.
Well, you're right. They're the only ones with the win, but the only win they got was against Wilson, New York Jets, right? I mean,
one rookie had to have a win.
Yeah, it's by default, right? I mean, and that's obviously Mac Jones. I think a big part of this, right, is what we're seeing is a lot of these guys: Trevor Lawrence from Clemson, Mac Jones from Alabama, Justin Fields from Ohio State. They came from these big marquee programs where they had just all kinds of talent around them. They had better players, better coaches. Heck, probably even better fans than a lot of their competition. So they were able to just ride that wave. I mean, it's a lot easier to throw for a lot of touchdowns and yards when you're throwing a wide open receivers or hitting short passes to running back and watching them run away. In the NFL, you don't get that, right? It's a lot harder. It's a lot more competitive. The talent level is closer. And frankly, the teams aren't very good. The Jags stink. The Bears stink. I mean, the Patriots are rebuilding, they're retooling. So I think it's a challenging environment for these guys. And it doesn't help that they came from programs where they literally had the best talent 99 out of 100 games they played.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that one. And, but I would say in recent years, am I misremembering, or is this bunch especially bad to start off the year?
Oh, they're really bad, right? I think, Wilson and Lawrence have especially been turnover bug. I mean, you had David Mills who jumped in for Houston. He kind of got through in the mix, so you're not too upset at him. But, Mac Jones has played okay, hasn't played great. He hasn't been terrible, but I think Lawrence and Fields have really, really struggled. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, you just kind of expect a little bit more out of the first round guy.
Oh yeah.
And finally, what are your thoughts? I read the stat, okay? Jamie Collins, career grading average with New England, 90.0. Career grading average with every other team, be it Browns, Detroit, any other team he was on. I think he's on one more if I can't remember. 56.0. Is he a double agent for the Patriots just to go out there? He does great, gets a huge contract from another team, gets the money, sucks, and then gets cut and goes back to New England.
Yeah, so I think really what he is, we talked about Sherman, right, and how he needs to be better at marketing, maybe a little bit more business-minded. And we talked about Heineke and that missed opportunity. Let's give some positive credit out to Collins, right? He's got it figured out. He goes
Marketer extraordinaire.
Marketing businessman extraordinaire. He goes to New England, has a couple really good years. Then he just rides the coattails for the last 5 years, jumping around from team to team. He gets to miss a few games due to injury, not play as well. He still gets paid millions and millions of dollars. Let's give big props, big kudos to Jamie Collins, smart businessman extraordinaire.
This is my idea. I know Jeffy B just stepped down recently. Amazon is trying to get. We talked about this last week. They're trying to get streaming rights to the NFL and buy a team. Who is the perfect CEO to put in place to bridge that gap? Jamie Collins, new CEO of Amazon. I think that would be a good fit. So don't shoot it down. Let's just think about it, Jeff. Think about it. So, before we get to our deep dive topic, so we reach deep down in our big brains and tell everyone how smart we are, let's warm those brains up. I have a trivia question for you. This one I really don't know if it will be difficult or not. I have a couple hints for you, but let's see if you know it. You probably will. It's more of a historic fact, but who was the first player to rush for 1,000 yards in a season?
Oh my gosh. Was that Van Buren?
It was not. Would you like a hint?
Yeah, give me a hint.
Here was the hint. They played for the Chicago Bears. He actually ran for 1,004 yards, and this was in 1934.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to know this guy's name. I know. I know this the fact. Yeah, but I'm not going to know it. Who is it?
Uh, Beatty Feathers.
Yep. Yep.
Beatty Feathers. So, I think that one, a little bit more obscure, but I think you probably you would have known it better than I would. I have no idea. I don't even know who that guy is.
Van Buren was a big running back in the 40s for the Eagles, so that was kind of where I was thinking he's a Hall of Famer. But yeah, I would not have gotten Feathers. Once you said Chicago, it kind of jogged something in my memory, but I would never have gotten that. That's a good one. Good trivia one. Good hard one.
All right. Moving on now that our brains are properly warmed up, you had to think. Let's move on to our deep dive topic of the week. Should star players have to be role models? Do you want to start, or would you like me to start?
Yeah, I'll start with this. So I think there's a couple different factors to this, right? The first one is I think we're very quick to forget, that how these guys usually, especially the younger guys, they're right out of college. These guys are 21, 22, 23, right? And so, I'm not too far removed from that. I know you're not either. The level of maturity at that age, 20, 21, 22, is not anywhere where you'd want anything to do with being a role model or a leader in the community or anything like that.
You give me fame, fortune, and, notoriety at that age, I might not be here anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's, I have a good rule of thumb, right? Everyone is an idiot until they're 25, and I think a lot of these guys, these younger players, they're still going through that. They're just very rich and famous.
It's obvious. I don't know if you knew this, but it's because when you turn 25, that's when your prefrontal cortex is fully developed.
Oh, I did not know that, but
so that's why your decision making gets better. You're less impulsive. So let's see how some of these young guys, when they hit 25, what they're looking like.
Yeah, well, and I think the other part of it too is, right, even as they get older, right, the ones that last, they've been in the NFL for a while. They've gone through the fame and the notoriety and the money. They're now kind of separated, right, from the society, right? They're not like you and I. They don't go to the same bars, restaurants, and stores, right? Because they're separate. Whether it's fame and paparazzi or media that's hounding them, or it's just money, they have access to different things. They don't live the same way, a lot of ordinary people live, right? So they get kind of in this bubble. They get kind of like in a Hollywood-esque kind of bubble where they live their own life. And that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think when you see like the media put a lot of pressure on these guys to be role models and activists in their communities, I think that's not really fair, because these guys are now disconnected from those same communities that they're supposed to be, or encouraged, or even kind of almost coerced to be activists for, right? And they're separate. I mean, no one goes up to Brad Pitt in Hollywood or Tom Cruise and says, "Hey, I demand you, support this cause, or, or support this little hometown, or come back here and give all your friends jobs, or pick up trash in the highway," or whatever. It's like, no one expects that, because they understand these guys are,
don't even separated. Know where Brad Pitt's hometown is. I think NFL does a better job of that, at least. I think a lot of these guys at least respect their hometown, so they're doing something right. Well,
I think it's right with a lot of these guys. I think they feel the pressure to do so. And I think that's the problem. I think they feel like they have to.
My approach to this question is a little different. It was a two-pronged approach. And I agree in the sense that if you want to be a star player, and I have it tiered into two. We got superstar players and star players. If you want to be a star player and you want your accolades to be on the field and no one to dive into your personal life, that is fine. But if you're expecting more media exposure, more opportunities like analyst gigs afterwards, get on TV commercials, be the guy for someone's brand. If you want to be this superstar where your career elevates off of the football field and into the public, I think you do have to be a role model. Otherwise, you're not going to get those jobs. You think of superstar guys who do these things. You think of J.J. Watt, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Larry Fitzgerald, Russell Wilson, Calais Campbell, Peyton Manning, anyone who's like eligible for Walter Payton Man of the Year. That those guys seem to do pretty good. So those guys are the ones who are great athletes, great players at their position, but they're elevating their role model status. They're being good role models. You don't ever really see any problems with those guys, and they're getting their career is bigger than football. They're outside of life. You see them on TV. You see what happened to Peyton Manning. You see Drew Brees on ESPN now. Even guys like Robert Griffin III, he was a superstar as a rookie. He kind of fizzled out, but he was a good role model, and he's even on ESPN now. But you don't see guys who I have as star players who aren't role models. You don't see Antonio Brown going on TV after this, unless he has a reality show about how crazy his life is. You don't see Roethlisberger eyeing a job at ESPN for an analyst. Ryan Leaf isn't going out there doing things. Deshaun Jackson with his, opinions and ideas, he's not going out there. Plexico Burress, Pac-Man Jones. The one example I do have, but it's almost like a redemption story. Michael Vick, before his career, I'll say Falcons, Eagles. So pre-incident on Falcons, he was this superstar, but he wasn't a role model. And then that killed his career, lost a lot of notoriety. Then he went to jail. He came back, went to the Eagles and Steelers, and I think he had a really different mentality about people really care what I do and they see, and he almost had a wake-up call. And now you see he's an analyst as well. He's doing good because after that, his superstar status was there. But he had to get the role model status, and that's what allowed him to get there.
Well, and I think the big thing is choices the players make, right? I have no problem if a player, is solely focused on their craft and, they don't want any distractions. They're focusing only to be on an NFL player. That's perfectly fine. No problem with that at all. And that's what they can do and be very successful that way. I think, and players can also choose to be role models. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. Like you and I, we talked about Gronkowski before, Rob Gronkowski. He's certainly a different breed of role model.
Yeah. But he's still a role model. I think he's not a bad player to look up to.
No, not at all. I just think it's a different animal. How it's handled.
And I think he was successful. He could handle it.
Right, and he made the choices to be the role model he wanted to be, or be the player, and outside of football, the person he wanted to be. Right. I think what happens is the media tries to pigeonhole athletes and these players to fit into certain roles outside the game. And a lot of players feel like they have to do it. They have to, do stuff, whether it's for their hometown or their current city, or support certain causes or give certain money to certain things, just to fulfill the role the media thinks they should be in. And I think that's wrong. I think these players should focus and make the choices they want to make. If they want to focus on supporting certain causes or doing certain things, outside of the game, that's their right. If they want to focus on just being the game, that's their right too.
And I think that's what you touched on there is huge. Focus. If you're able to focus. And I have an example. Who has been on a lot of commercials lately? Especially last year after 2 Super Bowl appearances. And now their team hasn't started off so hot. Maybe they lost that focus. Patrick?
And Mahomes,
got anything to say about that, Pat? We're talking to you. So, I mean, you get that stardom, you get that superstardom, all eyes on you. You start to accept these gigs. Do you have the focus? Maybe he needs to back off a little bit. Get his head back in the playbook.
Well, and I think what happens, right, is players, and obviously the Chiefs, they're off to a little bit of a slow start, but it's early. We'll see what happens. But I think, we talked about a little in our preseason episode, the Chiefs, they're not very good on defense. They've taken some steps back. Offensively, they're getting older and slower. So that puts more burden on Mahomes. He's got to handle more and more of that load. But the problem is, as he gets more notoriety and fame and opportunities come up, he actually loses focus on the game, whereas he needs to actually focus more on the game, right? And I think that's what guys like Manning and Brady and Rodgers in a lot of ways have focused more on, specifically the game. And if it's not the game, it's 1 or 2 other things they want to focus on, not necessarily some side projects to try and take on. And I think we'll see how Mahomes and the Chiefs perform. But I think you're onto something there, right? There's only so many hours in the day. And in a hyper-competitive world that the NFL is, and talent is so close, between teams and even players, where if you shift your focus slightly, that can mean the difference between winning a game and losing a game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that was very insightful. You have any other comments on the subject? I think we're good. I think that was so basically, if you want, I don't think you should have to be one. I think that's what we're at. If you don't want to be a role model, you shouldn't have to be. You shouldn't have to be in the focus of attention. But if you expect something, maybe, you should just look at what you're doing off the field. And I think the tie-in with Patrick Mahomes leads us exactly into our next segment, worst to first, AFC West. How has that slow start affected his ranking in our power rankings?
Well, I guess we're about to find out. I'll go first. I'll list my 4. We'll do a little different this week. I'll start at 4 and list mine up to 1. Provide my reasons, and I'll hand it off to you and have you list yours.
All right.
All right, cool. I'll get us going. Number 4 for me, then that's the Denver Broncos, right? A little bit of a surprise here because they're 3-0. They're undefeated. Look, they haven't played anybody. We all know it. They beat a bad Giants team. They beat the Jaguars. They killed the New York Jets. Great job. You're 3-0 against 3 teams that are 0-9. So that's not exactly an impressive schedule. Look, I get it. Bridgewater's an upgrade. They've got some offensive players. Their defense is solid. But until they play anybody good, and they get Baltimore this weekend, they have a chance to prove me wrong. I don't think they're anything special. Maybe they get it to 7 or 8 wins. I kind of doubt it at this point. We'll see. They're my number 4. Number 3, we just talked about it. They have the worst record in the division, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They're 1-2. They could be 0-3. Cleveland had them on the ropes week 1. They got bailed out by a Cleveland special teams blunder. Mahomes had the worst September of his career. He has 3 picks already in his first 3 games. They haven't been nearly as efficient on offense. They're really bad in defense. Big shocker here. They are tied with the Detroit Lions at last place for the most points given up in the NFL. This is not a good defensive football team. They're forcing not enough turnovers to overcome it. The offense is turning the ball over. We'll see how Kansas City and Mahomes and Andy Reid turn this around. They've got a battle in front of them here for the rest of the year. Number 2 for me, and that's Las Vegas Raiders. Look, they're 3-0. It's exciting. Gruden and Derek Carr, they got that funny little dynamic there. It's very entertaining. But look, they've won 2 games in overtime by the skin of their teeth. They had some struggles against Pittsburgh. They're playing good football. I see this as a team that could probably sneak into the playoffs, win 10 games or so. I've got some issues with defense. I got some issues with that offensive line. It's a revamped offensive line. Look, Darren Waller's a beast. They got speed. Ruggs look to be coming into his own. Derek Carr, Gruden, their whole thing. They're a good team, not a great team. They're my number 2. Number 1, I'm going with Los Angeles Chargers here. I am very, very impressed. We talked about it in the opener, right? Herbert outdueling Mahomes in Kansas City. That doesn't happen, especially early in the year before weather makes a big effect on passing offenses. Herbert, I am blown away with his arm talent. This guy makes throws week in and week out. It is staggering. He's got a good offensive line, good running game. Eckler's a heck of a guy out of the backfield and running in between the tackles. They got Mike Williams and Keenan Allen at wide receiver. They got Jared Cook, veteran tight end. And look over at defense. They got that pass rusher in Bosa. They got Derwin James on the back end. This is a talented team top to bottom. I think they're probably the second best team in the AFC right now. I think the Chargers are the best team in that division. So just quick recap. I got Chargers at 1. I got the Raiders at 2. I got the Chiefs at 3. And I've got the Broncos at 4.
And I respect your opinion, reserving first in the AFC for Baltimore. Who do you have there? Who do you think is the best team in the AFC?
The best team in the AFC? Yeah, so I think right now it is Baltimore. I think beating Kansas City actually set them apart. I think the AFC is wide open. I think
it's crazy this year.
Yeah, it's very, very tight and tightly competitive. I don't see anyone really jumping out of the pack. Maybe Buffalo, but I'm just not sold on. I think I take I know Allen beat Jackson in the playoffs last year. I think Allen maybe takes a step back. I think it's Buffalo. I think it's
that's our game plan. We let you beat us once, and then we figure out and come back next year and get you.
Yeah, so I think I have Baltimore, Chargers, and then Buffalo are probably my top 3 teams.
Well, I'm glad that you gave your list because I'm very familiar. They say great minds think alike. In my 4th slot, I have the Denver Broncos. Obviously, they beat the worst of the worst. all three teams suck. I couldn't even tell you which one sucks the most. Maybe the Giants because they've had time to mesh and they still suck. But the Broncos, they haven't beaten anyone. Until they beat somebody who's good, I'm out on the Broncos. I'm not buying it. In my 3 spot, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. How ironic. Yeah, they've lost some tough games, and they almost got beat by a good Browns team. They don't seem the same. They are slower. They aren't as dynamic on offense. Defense is absolutely atrocious. They look very mortal as compared to other years. And maybe this loss to Tampa in the Super Bowl has really messed with their mojo. And I don't know if this sounds familiar to you, but in my number 2 spot, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. They've gone off to a fast 3-0 start. But they haven't really faced a great team yet. They got Baltimore early, but that was, Baltimore's hurt. They hadn't really found their groove with all of the new players who had stepped in, and they took them to overtime still. So if you can't overcome a week 1 team with 14 players on the IR, it brings some questions to mind. But the true thing is I have Chargers in my number 1 spot. Whoever wins this game this week, Chargers versus Raiders, that is who's number 1. If the Raiders can beat the Chargers, I will cement them at the top of the AFC West. If the Chargers can beat the Raiders, I think they definitely solidify their spot there. They are now top of the AFC West for me, and I am betting that they will stay there after this week.
Yeah, I got to give you credit there, Miles. That is an absolutely outstanding ranking.
I thought it was good. I thought, this guy, I picked him as a partner for a reason. I think all these years together, our minds have started to mesh and speaking with each other so much during the weeks now. If this next top 5 is similar, I don't know what to do. Maybe we need to step back. We're in the same headspace. We're basically thinking the same exact things now. Right. But that leads us to our top 5 segment. How'd you feel about this one? What did you think about the topic that we chose? Top 5 NFL uniforms of 2021.
Yeah, so for me, I am far from an artistic guy. When I think of football, I don't think of uniforms. So this was the hardest segment for me I've had to think about for a while. So I'm interested to see how this goes. Why don't you get us going and see where we end up?
All right. Number 5 here. More of like a nostalgic classic look, but maybe a modern update to it. Indianapolis Colts here. Love the uniform. I like the horseshoe. Maybe Baltimore Colts are striking memories. I obviously left Baltimore off the list. I don't like to be biased, so I put the next best thing, another team that was in Baltimore, on my list. At number 5, Indianapolis Colts. Like the blue, when they go all white like that. I like the blue as well. I think of Peyton Manning. Iconic jersey. Another iconic jersey for me is Green Bay Packers. A few years ago, they had the yellow helmets, green jerseys, and white pants, and I was like, not doing it. Recently, like in the last 5 to 6 years, they switched to yellow pants. That really changed everything for me. The yellow pants, green jerseys, yellow helmet, it really just sets the look for me. They're obviously iconic. You think Brett Favre, you think, Aaron Rodgers, you Bart Starr, anybody in the green and yellow. It's an iconic look. It's one of the oldest teams in history, and it's built its name. No one else has a color scheme like that. Number 3, and this is so much I like the change from what they were before a lot. Cincinnati Bengals. I always like the tiger theme. I like the helmets. The helmets are cool. Orange with the tiger stripes on it. They used to have the ugly orange shoulder pads with the tiger stripes there. Hated those uniforms. Did not think they were great. I'm glad they have updated them. It's now all black with more accents on the sides and the numbers. I think it looks really classy, tiger stripes. I don't know if that's like a fashion word. Can you do classy tiger stripes? we'll see. Maybe Bill wears that to his next Met Gala. I don't know. But Bengals are in my 3 spot. 2. Now this is where I put my personal bias on these less of more iconic jerseys. Seattle Seahawks electric green alternate jerseys that does it for me. I love the color. I've always like Oregon teams that wear that color as well. I think it is vibrant, but not too vibrant. I think it sets them apart. And I think like when Baltimore wears their all black alternates, wearing those uniforms brings a certain juice to the game. I don't know why. You probably experienced this in school and at footballs. When you get a new uniform, when you get new alternates, it just pumps the team up. If for not for a game, one game a year when they wear these electric green alternates, it really gets the team going. So I think that the whole precipice of that idea, and I just like the color. It's an odd color. It's bold to go with that choice. And then number 1 spot for me goes back to my childhood. I wasn't always a Ravens fan. I probably switched when I was 10. I used to be a San Diego Chargers fan, but now they're LA Chargers. And I love the powder blues. I'm glad they have made that their home jersey now, like officially. Powder blue jerseys, Los Angeles Chargers. Reminds me of Sean Merriman. Reminds me of LaDainian Tomlinson. Love that color. I love everything about it. And I think that it is a very nice uniform. And that's my list. And for my 6, my underdog uniform is purple. I had to put purple on the list somewhere if I couldn't pick Baltimore. I have the Minnesota Vikings. I like the purple. Love the Viking horns on the helmet. I like, instead of a logo, it's almost like an extra add-on to the helmet. It's like the helmet has Viking horns. One day I hope they actually put physical horns on the helmet. It could give them an advantage. But that is my list so far.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, to your point, about uniforms getting the team excited. I was never one of those guys, but
you're telling me when the Citadel came out with the new South Carolina logo on the side of the helmet, that didn't get you pumped up?
I did not care at all, but I will tell you this. There were certain uniform combinations that players did get excited for and were really excited and pumped up to see. So I didn't get it, but some people did. There's something to it.
Would you say it elevated play that day that you wore those uniforms?
It's hard to tell, right? Because we weren't very good. So we lost a lot of games. I guess we could have been worse, right? So maybe it did. Let's go with that.
All right.
But all right, my list. So like I said, this is kind of a different kind of topic for me football wise. So I'm going to be the old stodgy, get off my yard classic guy here. So I'm going to go with number 5. I'm going with the Browns when they were white at home. I think it's just a cool look. It takes me back to the videos and images of Jim Brown and Ernest Biner,
I already see where this is going.
Bernie Kosar and those guys and those old games and those classic matchups. I just think it's a cool look. You see the mud on the jersey. It just looks like football. All right. Number 4 for me on that same kind of theme. It's the old San Francisco home jersey. They got kind of the garnet thing going on. When I see that, like they wore Sunday night against Green Bay, kind of reminds me of Joe Montana hitting John Taylor in the back of the end zone, right? Obviously, that was before my time, but I grew up watching those highlights and the NFL game of the NFL game of the century kind of deals. Those things were awesome. I really liked it. Just kind of reminds me of football in the 80s with Joe Montana, West Coast offense kind of thing. Number 3, I'm kind of similar with you here. That's Green Bay Packers. I love
I can get on board with that.
Yeah, I love the green at home. I think it's cool. You got kind of a Brett Favre, you got kind of the Bart Starr kind of classic thing going on, Ice Bowl, all kind of cool stuff happening. I tell you what, I don't know if it's just Green Bay. You got quarterbacks that like to scramble and gunslingers and stuff. Just something about, Green Bay wearing green, quarterback rolling outside the pocket, whether it's Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, just kind of a cool deal there. Number 2, I don't know if it's a good uniform aesthetically, but I think it's kind of interesting and fun. The Raiders when they wear all black at home. I think that's awesome. It's just basically there's no style, there's no substance, there's no flash, there's no Instagram. You're not putting that on Snapchat or Facegram or Instabook. or whatever the kids call it these days. It's just lining up and playing football. No one can see the dirt. Doesn't matter. It's going to be just all dirt anyway. It's all black. I love it.
Brings you back to John Madden.
Well, oh yeah, like at least the videos of him. That was not something I ever saw. But
black hole.
Oh yeah. But number one, and hey, look, you and I both talk about every show. We got to remove our biases. So I'm definitely gonna, like you did, remove my bias completely. 100% unbiased pick, number one jersey, Dallas Cowboys wearing white at home. I tell you what, there's something just American and just sleek and cool of just wearing the white jersey, the silver helmets, the silver pants, the white shoes. You got that in Cowboy Stadium, the old Texas Stadium, right? Don't know if you know this or not, but a little history behind. So Dallas was one of the first teams to wear white at home. The reason they did that, so when teams came to Texas to play Dallas, they didn't have to wear their dark home jerseys while Dallas was wearing white. They get all tired and worn out playing in the sun all day. That was the theory. That's the story. Don't know if it's true or not, but the whole jersey thing, the white at home looks cool. America's team. It just feels like the way American football and just all those things that are great, the way it should be played. I think it's cool. I really like it. Unbiased, of course. And then my honorable mention jersey, I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know why. The team usually stinks. The jersey's obviously new. The team's new. But I just think it's a cool look, right? They changed it recently. I think you and I talked about that to their newer design. I think it's pretty cool.
Ugly old.
Yeah.
Gold with the black ombre fade.
Yeah, whatever that was bad. But the new setup now is pretty cool. I think it's a good look, and they're my honorable mention. So I guess to recap, there's Cowboys number one, and then there's everybody else. So that's my list. Matters. That's my list.
All right, that was great. Recap: I had Chargers, Seahawks, Bengals, Packers, Colts, Vikings. Honorable mention.
Yeah.
So that's good. How'd you like that? I know that's out of your realm. There's no stats involved. It's a pure opinion piece, but I thought it was interesting. Yeah,
it's just a different way of looking at it. Something I really don't think about. But I know it's a big deal to a lot of people, and I play with people. It was a big deal, the uniforms we're wearing. It may surprise a lot of fans and a lot of followers of the game, but there are people, players, coaches, the whole nine that take it very, very seriously.
I can understand. I can get behind. Let's see if these uniform combinations maybe can juice up some teams that we're going to pick this week. Maybe we should add in what uniforms they're going to wear to our selection. I don't know if we'll know that yet or not, but that could give us a little bit of insight on our weekly pick'em, on our top matchups of the week. Are the Seahawks wearing green? Does that help answer my questions? Who knows? Here, you go first on our first game, and I will go first on the second game. So firstly, Bucks versus Pats.
Yeah, so obviously Brady returning to New England, right? It's all over sports media. It's all over frankly, it's all over regular media. It is a big story and obviously all that. But I think it's just a game, like I talk about all the time. It's a game of matchups, right? And I think the Bucks team, they're deeper, they're more talented, they're a veteran team. They're coming off a loss. Veteran teams and veteran coaches, Bruce Arians obviously is, they respond well to losses, right? And I think they're going to respond really well to the loss and that they had last week against the Rams in New England. I like a lot of things Mac Jones has done at quarterback for New England, but they're starting to get banged up a little bit. James White is out for the year. They haven't been great on offense at all. They forced a lot of turnovers on defense. I don't think they're going to get them with Brady. As much as I think Belichick with time is going to put together some kind of creative game plan to really kind of constrict Brady and make their offense, have some struggles. I'm going with the Bucks here. I think there's just too much to overcome for New England.
I guess I would agree with you for different reasons. Obviously, we missed some key Patriots returning. Patriot legend Rob Gronkowski is going to be back. He might get juiced for the game. Also, Patriots legend Antonio Brown will be playing.
Yes.
So they might get a little bit of extra excitement. And another point that I think will really gas Brady up, maybe not so much going back to New England, but knowing that New England is the last team out of 32 that he needs to beat to say that he has beaten every NFL team. I think that's a very important fact, and I think that is what gives him an extra boost to play for. Now he's a reason to play. He's already won all the championships. He's won a championship with another team. He's proved his point. Now he just needs to beat all 32 teams to check that box. So
yeah, I think he definitely wants to. I think he wants to beat New England, right? And I think if anything, that's what Belichick can use against them and force some turnovers and maybe make some plays against Brady. I just think the Bucs are too talented, right? I mean,
do you think it's like impossible? Like, do you think they could score 50? Do you think it's possible?
I think Brady will try. I don't think so. To me, this kind of looks like a 27-10. If it's a blowout, it's like 27-10. I think it'll actually be a close game, but I think the Bucs will win.
Interesting.
I don't think it gets too high scoring. I think that the Patriots defense is too good. The Bucs defense is too good. It's going to be a relatively low scoring game.
And obviously, you do take bias out of everything, but to counteract any bias that could be, I will give my thoughts on the Cowboys versus the Panthers. To begin, I think both teams are off to a hot streak. Cowboys 2-1, Panthers 3-0. Cowboys' only loss comes to the Bucs, who are defending Super Bowl champions. Week 1, Dak just got back, and it was so close. Such a close game. Anyone could have won. So that's not really the way that we can't tick that off. I think they're both on hot streaks. Both have incredible wins. The Cowboys just beat the Chargers, and the Eagles last week on Monday night. The one thing that the Panthers have had happen that I really think is going to hinder them, star rookie cornerback J.C. Horn is hurt, and he could be hurt for the foreseeable future. I think losing one of your key secondary pieces when you come up against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys' elite passing attack is really going to hurt you. And that passing attack, Gallup, who is also hurt, but if he was there, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper is the leader. They remind me of a great Pittsburgh receiving corps where it's Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, and Mike Wallace. And what did they call themselves? The Bugatti Boys. Now, that might be a Pittsburgh Steel Town type of phrase, but that's not really a good old Southern Texas cowboy phrase. I am now renaming them the Clydesdale Boys. So Dak and the Clydesdales, I think they're going to be way too much to handle for Carolina. I think they win 10, 14 points.
Dak and the Clydesdale sounds like a bluegrass band you'd find like playing on a random Wednesday night in the middle of Oklahoma.
And I'll be disappointed if they don't capitalize on that opportunity. I've seen Dak wear a cowboy hat.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I think my feelings on this game, like I always talk about matchups. I think one of the interesting things about this is both teams have some key injuries, but they're injuries that are mirrors of each other. And what I mean by that is we talked about J.C. Horn being hurt. Well, Michael Gallup is hurt. Amari Cooper's coming off an injury. He's been slowed a little by that. So I think even though J.C. Horn is hurt for Carolina, Dallas has corresponding injuries on their side. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey pulled his hamstring last week. Huge loss for Carolina. But Dallas's defense, their front seven has a lot of injuries. DeMarcus Lawrence is still out, obviously, a couple other guys as well. So I think, those kind of matchups where you think a key injury would shift it one way or the other, they both kind of shift against each other. I think Dallas's defense has surprised a lot of people, but they've done it mainly with turnovers. That's really not sustainable game to game, especially with Darnold, who getting away from Adam Gase and the Jets, he's been much better with the football.
Looks good.
Yeah, he does. He's taking care of the football, making good throws, making good decisions. I think Darnold does well against Dallas. I don't think he has any turnovers. I think Prescott, who, by the way, has played very well, but he's had a turnover in each of Dallas's first 3 starts. I think there's a chance he has a turnover or 2 in there, and I think that keeps the game very, very close. I think it's a close game. I could see this one going 24-21, but in the end, I think Prescott in that offense I trust a little more than Darnold and the Carolina offense. So that's why I'm leaning this one to Dallas.
Come on, Nick. Get a little bit more aggressive on your. I say Darnold has 2 pick sixes.
No.
So Diggs is looking good out there. And I saw this fact. We haven't discussed it yet. Micah Parsons has yet to declare whether he'll be at linebacker or defensive end. And he says, it's a cool thing. You can keep them guessing. They don't know what to prepare for. I think it's pretty obvious he's going to stay at defensive end. Be almost crazy. If you have the depth at linebacker, I know you have more depth at end than linebacker, but if someone can replace him, he looks like that'll be his resting place when all is said and done.
Yeah, he's rushed the passer very, very well. I think he's a third down situational pass rusher. I like him being off the ball. I don't want him to get bulldozed by offensive tackles all game, right? Because he's still a little bit smaller compared to defensive ends. But definitely in third down situations, he's been absolutely outstanding. He's very quick, very explosive. He's made a lot of plays. I mean, he's had a really good start to his career, and I certainly hope it continues.
Is it too hard to play both? Like him?
Yes. So right, it's two very different positions between being a defensive end between 1st and 10 and 3rd and 10, right? Because it's a different game. So on 1st and 10, you're obviously playing the run. You've got to make sure you have outside contain so you don't get reach blocked. You got to have some gap integrity. You got to pursue in case there's any cutbacks. If it's some kind of zone run to the other side of the field, you got to watch for traps. You got base blocks, all that kind of stuff. So it's just a different game. It's a different mindset. On 3rd and 10, it's get to the quarterback. The only thing you have to maybe worry about is a screen. And even then, you still get to the quarterback and then, reverse field to get track the ball carrier down, the running back who cut the screen down. So it's a very, very different dynamic between being a 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down defensive end than just a 3rd down pass rusher. And it's a lot more physical. It's a lot more wearing down. I think that's why I want Parsons to focus more off the ball in the early downs, but be a pass rusher on 3rd down.
Interesting. Now to our underdog matchups. Game to watch. It's not this week for me. It's not so much as an underdog, but maybe I pull for the proverbial underdog in this matchup. I have the Raiders versus Chargers. Could be the biggest game of the week, I think we have said, but I'm pulling for the Chargers in this game. I believe they are going to win, and they're 2-1. So I know on paper, Vegas odds they are ahead, but the Chargers, I have them slated to win this game. I think the Raiders have been on a hot streak. They haven't really played anyone great. They played Baltimore early on, but that was right after Baltimore had tremendous 14 players on IR. Missing 2 star wide receivers, every running back that they ever owned, starting cornerback, tons of injuries, and they took them to overtime. So if a team like that can take you to overtime, I think it shows a little bit of a chink in your armor. Obviously now they have got up to speed and they've pulled out some miracles. So that is something to say. And I will say I'm tired of them winning at the last second or losing at the last second. It's getting very stressful. But I digress. Back to my main point. I think it will be a tough game for both teams. The Raiders' pass rush has looked good. The Raiders' defense has looked fairly strong. Their offense has looked capable. I know they had some injuries last week. But in my mind's eye, I see LA with Staley and Herbert as a more lethal combination than Las Vegas with Gruden and Carr. So
I agree.
That's where I'm sticking.
I think that's a great pick, and I agree with you for those reasons you outlined right there. It can literally be Herbert versus Carr, in which case I go Herbert, like we talked about when we did our worst the first segment. So my kind of underdog matchup, I'm going with Minnesota, who's a slight underdog to Cleveland. I think Minnesota beats Cleveland. I think Cleveland's a little bit of a mirage, right? They had some struggles against Denver. It was against Houston. Then Tyrod Taylor got hurt. David Mills, the rookie, has to come in. Houston's not the same. They end up beating them. And then they beat a really, really bad Bears team like we already talked about. I can't tell you how good Cleveland is. I think they're not really anything special. I think they're a decent team. I don't think they're a great team. At the same time, Minnesota, yeah, they're 1-2, but they lost a brutal heartbreaker to Cincinnati week 1, and they lost an even more brutal heartbreaker to a very good Arizona team. They missed a chip shot field goal at the buzzer to win. They should be 2-1. They're not. They're 1-2, and the reason they're 1-2 is because last week they dominated a very good Seattle team, 30-17. I look at Kirk Cousins, good enough quarterback. Dalvin Cook is a superstar running back. They got Jefferson at wide receiver. They got Thielen. I'm a little worried about the defense, but they seem to get a little bit better, especially the way they played against Russell Wilson last week.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you right now, I think Minnesota's got a little bit of a groove here. I think Cleveland's a little complacent. That's not a very mature organization, Cleveland. Baker's been up and down. I wouldn't be surprised Minnesota wins this game by 10 or 13 points. I think Minnesota pulls the upset here.
Back to our original point, Baker has been in a lot of commercials this season, so
needs to focus more.
Focus might not be there.
Yeah, and I think we'll see it this weekend. I think we'll see Minnesota beat them.
Now that we are completely warmed, are you ready to go into our new final segment? This is a speed round. This is what we're calling gut check. I'm going to read you from the list. Woo, it's a loud motorcycle. I'll read you the list of this week's games. Gut reaction, maybe a small comment about each one if you feel like it, or just give me your gut reaction, who the winner's going to be. All right? I will follow along with you, giving my opinions. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
First, Jags, Bengals.
Jags stink, Bengals.
I agree. Second, Titans, Jets.
Jets stink, Titans.
Easy, Titans. Lions, Bears.
Both stink. I'm picking Bears.
I pick Lions. Colts, Dolphins.
Colts are desperate, but I'm thinking Miami. They're too hot. Colts are too hurt.
I agree. Can't sprain both your ankles and still be effective. Dolphins. Browns, Vikings. I know you said Minnesota. I'm going to have to stray from the pack here. I think Browns. Washington, Atlanta.
Atlanta.
I would agree. But I kind of want to say... no, I'd say Atlanta. Texans, Bills. Who you got?
Bills demolish them.
Easy. 50 points. Giants, Saints.
I think the Saints demolish them. Giants stink.
Yeah, Giants, probably the worst team in the NFL. Chiefs, Eagles.
I think Chiefs demolish them. Eagles are really
easy. Got to have a comeback game sometime.
Yep.
Panthers, Cowboys. I think we both are on the same page with this one. Cowboys.
Yep.
Niners, Seahawks.
I'm going Seattle here. I think I like Russell Wilson after the loss.
I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think the Seahawks have looked mortal, and I think the Niners have looked relatively strong, so I'm going to go with the Niners here. Cardinals, Rams.
Rams look tough to beat.
Easy. MVP, Super Bowl pick. They look pretty unstoppable right now. Steelers, Packers.
Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers after week 1 has been on a mission.
All the way back. Relax, everyone. He is back. Ravens, Broncos.
I think Baltimore beats them. Denver's not for real.
Yeah, Baltimore for sure. Bucks, Pats.
I've already picked Tampa and the Bucks.
Bucks as well for me. And finally, who do you think? Raiders, Chargers. I think we're both on the same page here.
Yeah, this is Chargers. Herbert over Derek Carr. I agree with you.
LA, baby. All right. I think that was fun. We'll see. We're going to keep track and update our records throughout the season. I think both of us so far 3-0 on our underdog matchup picks, so that's very interesting. I think we both probably will win again this week. That was a great show. I would like to remind everybody, you can find us at Saturday Morning Inspection on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you can't find it there, head on over to our website, smishow.com. All links to all of those pages will be there, and our latest videos will be on the site as well that you could watch. You can find anything you need to about the show there. Nick, I think it was another great show. I'm very pleased.
Yeah, another great show. Good job, you. Good job, me. Ready for this week. Another great week of football. We're in the thick of it, and let's go. Week 4 time.
We're finally getting it. Everyone's warmed up. All the teams are ready to go. We're in the thick of football, like you said, and I'm excited. We'll discuss it next week. I'll see you then.
All right, man. See you then.